Welcome. Welcome to the Calexico City Council, Calexico Redevelopment Successor Agency, Calexico Financing Authority, regular meeting agenda. Welcome to the Calexico Fernando Nene Torres Council Chambers. It's Wednesday, February 21st, and it is 6:45. We do apologize. We did have quite a bit of conversation in closed session. Speaking of, City Attorney, would you like to make any comments about closed session?
Yes, City Council met in closed session on only the first two items. First item, conference, labor negotiators. And on that one, we received direction of no reported actions were taken. We also did meet on conference legal counsel, existing litigation, received direction, but no reportable actions. The third item, public employee appointment, we didn't have time to discuss that item as such. We'll be reconvening in closed session at the end of the City Council meeting.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for agreeing to stay over. May I please have City Clerk roll call? Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Thank you very much. We will continue then with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Horton, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Just because you're close by.
Position, Pledge allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have someone for the invocation? City Clerk, did someone sign up for today's invocation? No? Okay. Sorry about that. Do I have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
First by Mr. Real, second by Mr. Pacheco. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, announcements. These proceedings may be viewed on the City of Calexico website at www.calexico.ca.gov the Friday following the City Council meeting. Today we'll start our meeting with a presentation.
If we could do item 2 first, that would be great.
Alrighty.
Thanks.
Item 2 first. Item number 2 of presentations will be Community and Economic Development Department Assessment Presentation.
Attorney, don't we need to make a motion to go ahead and switch item 2 to the first item?
Either a motion or consensus of the council.
Okay.
They're just presentations, I figured. No one's voting. I'm going to sit over there so I can watch. Are you going to do something up here? Okay, yeah.
Good night, Madam Mayor, council members, members of the public. For the past 5 months, I have served as the Community and Economic Development Director for the City of Calexico. I think it's the proper time right now to come to you and present to you an assessment of not only what we found in the department once we took over, but also the work that has transpired over the course of the past 5 months. One of the things that we have been hearing over the course of the past council meetings, especially from our financial consultant, is the need to come up with ways to generate revenue to address the bleak financial picture that our city is going through at this time. So with that said, one of the most important things is making sure that we have a foundation and a structure that can enable that to happen. So as part of this presentation, there are 6 items in particular that I'm going to focus on. You see them right there, and I think for the sake of time and being sensitive of the audience, we'll get going. Next slide, please. So pretty much what we all want to see, we need to have a goal. We need to have an ultimate goal of what it is that we're working for. What is it that we're striving for on a daily basis? The biggest thing that I see right now that we all, I believe, can agree upon is that the City of Calexico needs to be business friendly. What do I mean by that? There are potential projects in the works. There are other projects right now that are actually in the process of being developed and going into construction. But that said, this city needs much more, and I think we all can agree to that. So how is it that we can become a business-friendly city? Well, that's where we're going to go into and talk about what's needed in order for that to happen. Over the course of the past month since I've been here, I've heard members of the community, staff members, and even council members say that we need to go through some changes in the way we conduct business in order to provide better chances for this city to receive developers and investments. We also need to make sure that we solve problems. There are a number of issues that are raised on a daily basis, people that walk through our doors, that speak to us, that express their concerns at this forum. So we need to make sure that we build that credibility where people see that we are going to be their go-to person to solve problems. Next slide, please. It's no secret, we don't got too much time to waste here. We need to get up and going. So one of the things that we can do is we can fast-track economic development. There are a number of things that we can't have right now to offer, but we do have a number of things that we can use in our favor. Tools that we can put to practice to make sure that we expedite the process of making people believe that they can come and invest in Calexico. There are a number of advantages that this city has. We hear it all the time. We're a border community. We are distinct from all the other cities in this county. Well, we need to do a better job in taking advantage of that. We need to assess what we have. And I'll get into much more detail specifically on what assets and what we have right now in terms of partners, infrastructure in our city to take advantage of. We need to make sure that we solidify the partnerships. One of the things that we've seen over the course of the past months is that the ties with Mexicali not only continue, but that they have been strengthened. And that is something that we need to continue to do. One of the things that some of the council members here, specifically Councilman Escobar, has been talking about is the fact that we need to do a better job in taking advantage of the other side of the border, our Mexican counterparts, and what they got to offer to us. We need to make sure that we have a working, dynamic, strategic plan that we can all follow. We all know that we need to be accountable. Us here, our city manager, myself, and my other co-staffers that work for the city, we all need to embrace and understand that we are accountable for being public servants and that we must implement what this city council directs us on. We need to continue to build a climate on a daily basis where we can attract people. Next slide, please. So one of the biggest issues that I was faced when I took over the Community and Economic Development Department was the issue of seeing that our housing programs were frozen. That pretty much is a big deal not only to our community, but to us as city officials. Why? We're missing out on millions of dollars. There's no other way to put it. We're missing out. We can't go after specific grants that HCD has to offer because we have issues that we need to address. So in a very quick explanation, I'll give you the rundown of the situation that we got right now. So in 2015, the city contracted financial consultants to assist us in alleviating the issues that we had with our CDBG and our home program income reports with the state of California. So one of the biggest things that we came across was the fact that we needed to do a better job, not only in preparing and submitting the reports to the state of California, but seeing the day-to-day oversight of every person that received an incentive from either of these two programs. So pretty much what has happened is that we've had a financial consultant assist us through the process of remediating the way our program income reports are done so they can be then reviewed, and after the fact they can be submitted to the state of California so we can be cleared. I want to point out, as this slide reads, that initially these consultants were brought in to look specifically at reports dating 2010 to 2015. Well, as we've seen over time, we have had to go 2 years back to 2008. So what has happened is that we've gone back to 2008 to make sure that all of those program income reports are adequately prepared, that are backed up by the proper documentation that's required by the state. So in essence, our auditor, which we brought on board, can make sure that we are complying with what the state requires. Well, guess what? As all this was occurring, I was just not going to wait for our financial consultants to pretty much carry on and complete the work, because honestly, I would not see when this would end. So what we decided to do was, I tasked 2 of my staffers to assist and make sure that we could expedite this process. How could we do this? We have the files here in-house. We have the paperwork. So we got ready and we make sure that we identified all the requirements that were missing. We found all those, and we were able to submit and complete all the program income reports for those 2 programs. What are we facing with right now? I can say that all of those reports are completed. The only issue that we're facing right now is we're working closely with the historical facts and documentation that our finance department has, so we can make sure that the beginning balances of these program income reports match with what the state and what us in our financial department should have. Once we're able to work that out, we will be able to submit audited reports to the state of California dating 2008 all the way to 2015, and then again we're going to be in good standing to be able to move ahead and qualify for potential grant opportunities. I want to tell you that over the course of the past 3 months, we've saved approximately a half a year in terms of where we would be right now if staff would not have stepped up and done a lot of the heavy lifting that we needed. It was time well invested. So, so with that said, I think I've provided an overview. I think the council and the community were due a report on this, so we could all know where we're at, what it is that we need to do in order to be in good standing once again and go after the money that we need to go to that this community requires. Next slide, please. Along those lines, myself and staff have come up with ways, with practices where we can begin to not only be creative, but begin to be efficient and effective with the time that we dedicate in order to make sure that we address some of the pending matters that we have, which we've been told for the past couple of months, which is generating revenue. It's about being creative. It's about coming together, being part of our Economic Development and Finance Advisory Commission, where we have been able to push the agenda. I'm happy to say that we've been able to meet for the past 5 months, at least since I've been on board, and we've been able to move forward with a number of items that we can now present to City Council for consideration and approval. One of the things that we're looking at is making sure that we have some type of hotel incentive program in which we can attract first-class hotels to make sure that we have a specific tax in place, a TOT, which most of you are familiar with, a transient occupancy tax, in which we can begin to generate revenue. It's going to impact our sales tax revenue as well, and we can have something in place that will entice and make sure that we have hospitality industry coming to town. With that said, I want to point out that the next 2 slides, including this one, these are things that we're going to bring forth to this City Council. It's important that we first present this to the community and to the City Council so we can all have an expectation of where it is that we're going and how it is that we're going to get it done. The second item you see right there is a service area municipal service review plan. It's pretty much something that LAFCO is requiring of this city. It's good to share that finally, after a 10-year period, when we had our last amendment to our last plan, which initially that plan was adopted in 2006, then in 2008 there was an amendment that was approved by LAFCO. It's been 10 years. It's been long overdue. Over the course of the past 10 years, our population has grown 17%, which amounts to over 6,000 people, and we have new developments that have occurred. it's time that we come up to speed to make sure that all services that the city has to offer to its constituents are up to date and with the approval of LAFCO. One of the things that we have heard also is that, yes, over the course of the past years, we've lost staff. So we've been able, we're now facing the issue of having to do the same or more with less. One thing that we need to be very cognitive of is, I mentioned right now about having a good streak of commission meetings where we've met and we've been able to take action and move items. Well, one of the things, it's no secret, our downtown, our bid zone, which is made up of downtown and Imperial Avenue, is very, very much in need of moving forward. The bid has not met over the course of more than a year. There are a number of reasons as to why that has happened. But enough is enough, as you're going to hear me say in my presentation tonight. What's being discussed right now is that given that we have limited time, we have limited staff, we need to do something about that. And we need to make sure right now something that's going to come again and going to be presented to council is the possibility for them to consider incorporating the bid into our Economic Development Commission. We share the same perspective. At the end of the day, it's the economic well-being of our city. In this case, it would be the economic well-being of the overall city plus the bid zone. We want to make sure that the monies that are sitting in our budget for the bid are autonomous and continue to be used specifically for the purpose that they were levied and that our businesses paid for. Again, I want to make sure that this is going to be a transparent process in which I look at this as a super commission, in which we're going to incorporate the best interest of the bid so we can move forward not only with them, but with the overall economic development strategy of the city of Calexico. One of the things that has also been discussed, and it's been raised, is the fact that there's been a pilot project that has been talked about for years for Rockwood between 1st and 2nd Street. At this time, all things should be considered. If there is anything that's going to entice the economic growth of our downtown should be considered. And then again, our Development Services Department has already began to do some of this work in previous years, and I want to make sure that we undertake it and that we bring it once again as consideration for the City Council. Next slide, please. The New River Improvement Project and Calexico Parkway Project. I'm happy to say that the Colorado River Regional Water Quality Control Board is going to put to place $1.4 million commencing February 27th, in which a firm is now going to be, well, officially they've already been awarded the contract, and what this is going to do is we are now going to be able to have the specific dollar amount with plans that we need to know for the encasement, the environmental work, the pump back system for the New River from the border all the way to the 2nd Street Bridge. Remember, that's out of the jurisdiction of the City of Calexico, but this goes hand in hand with the border expansion project because GSA is counting with this moving forward so they can also complete what we've been presented over the course of the past months. With that said, the regional board is moving forward, and this approximately will take between 8 months to a year to complete, so it aligns with the timeline that GSA has as well. At the same token, the Public Works Department here for the city has submitted the RFA to Caltrans, now moving to the Parkway project, which is within our jurisdiction. There are $2 million that date back to 2009 that were secured through AB 1079, in which we will have initial money to begin the construction of the actual Parkway project that sits behind the airport and between the West Side homes of Calexico. So that is going to happen, I would say, within the next couple of, I don't want to say weeks, that's too ambitious. Within the next month or so, we're going to get the response from Caltrans so we can begin to move on that. One of the things that I have requested of the state of California is for them to come down and in tandem with us, have a community forum where we can present to our local constituents, how it is that we're going to move forward, what it is that they can expect for both projects, so we can all be on the same page. Another thing is a very ambitious project that my staff and I have been working on with San Diego State, along with the lines of what I shared with you about how it is that we want to entice our local economy. We're going to have a joint analysis done specifically on Calexico businesses for business retention and development. It's going to be an analysis in which we're going to be working directly with the Public Administration Department from San Diego State to do this analysis for the city of Calexico. I can tell you that this is an analysis that shortchanged roams around the dollar figure of $35,000 to $50,000. And I can tell you because I did this for the Workforce Development Office. But this is going to be free of charge to the city of Calexico because this is something that we're going to do jointly where San Diego State will have the opportunity to publish it. Another important component about going back to what I shared about being business friendly, there are a number of things that we need to address in terms of how we can help attract businesses. We need to look and we need to make sure that we analyze our business license process and the new development fees for developers that are looking to invest in our community. It's not that we're going to shortchange the city. It's completely the other way around. We're going to work out a process in which we can entice the business to do business and invest here in the city, and also retain businesses, which is also something that at times can be overseen. We need to make sure that we retain businesses. As we all know, we just went through the terrible news about hearing a historic landmark store in downtown, which is Jesse Penney, closing down, and that's going to happen in the month of May. That was a corporate decision, something completely out of the reach of the city, where no layoff aversion strategies could have prevented that. But at the same time, what we're doing now is we're making sure that we're talking to the business owners so we can have a plan in place in which we can have somebody go in and occupy that building in its first and second floors. So this fee structure that we're looking at is something that we're going to come back again and present to this council so we can address the overall expectation of improving our economic climate. Next slide, please. You see 26 green dots right there on that map. Those are the 26 projects right now that the city has in effect right now. These projects are either going through an environmental review process or they're being ready to be constructed and moving forward with. I want to appreciate the support of the Development Services team through its manager, Ralph Morales, in making sure that we work hand in hand with my department to make sure that we have not only up-to-date information, but that we are in sync with the way we conduct business and the way we work with developers. Next slide, please. Out of those 26 dots, I want to focus on 5 of them. One of them is El Portal subdivision, which is part of a 1,000-unit development that we're going to have. Its initial phase, it's going to be 400 homes. Right now, we're going through the environmental phase review of this. We anticipate that possibly by fall or in the latter part of the year, we will begin to move forward with this. As we know, this is a developer out of San Diego that is eager to do different types of homes through 3 phases that's going to add up to 1,000 units when it's all completed. Some of us heard about First Imperial Credit Union breaking ground. We've heard enough about the banking industry leaving the city of Calexico. Well, this is something that we should highlight and do a better job in showcasing. I mean, we have a local financial institution believing to invest on a 4,000 square foot facility in the city of Calexico. This is what we need. This is what's going to attract other people and say, hey, we can come and do business. They're returning, at least at the local level. We have Pioneers Memorial. I mean, this is a 2-pronged approach. They're going to build a new medical office, which is 4,500 square feet, and they're going to remodel the existing facility that they had. As part of the cannabis overlay zone work that we're doing, right now, just with 2 projects, we're looking at over 120,000 square feet of building space that's going to be used, which is located on over 11 acres of property. Next slide, please. One of the things that Councilman Escobar had brought up was the situation with the leases the city of Calexico has. I want to be upfront and share with all of you that you see a list right there of 16 leases, 4 of them being from the RDA, and I want to point something out. We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do with those leases. They are not up to par where I want to see them. They are not where they need to be. But it's important that we bring it up, that we show it, and that we can come back at a not too long future date and let you know that we've taken care and make sure that those leases are not only up to date, but up to the market standards in terms of what has to be paid in Calexico. No, that's a very good question. The airport leases are not there, and those leases, those would be 8 additional leases. Yeah, the difference with the airport leases is they only have a life expectancy of a month. In other words, they get automatically renewed on a monthly basis. But they're on a month-to-month contract. Next slide, please. So just going back to what we talked about, this is the cannabis overlay zone. Overall, to your left, that is the overall map of the city. You can see that it's on the northwest part of our town. To your no pun intended. That's a green shade, but to your left, you have the zoom of the actual area. As we all know, right now I just mentioned 2 particular projects that are going to be developed. Right now we are anticipating and working on 3 additional ones. I want to say that there are some champions here in our community sitting in the chambers right now that are working extremely hard to make sure that we provide the adequate services and that we move forward with a potential revenue generating opportunity which we have right now, which is this project in particular. Next slide. One of the things that I want to highlight is that at the December 20th meeting, the City Council approved an ordinance that gave us a resolution, I apologize, that gave us at the administration level the discretion to move forward with a donation of property on the northwest part of our town, over there by Pruitt Road and Cloakey Road. We're talking about 40 acres of property between the 2 parcels. You see right there to your right, that's the map of the parcels that we are talking about. We conducted a phase 1 environmental, and I'm very, very happy to say that over the course of, I would say, 2 weeks, we were able to not only close escrow, but make sure that we took care of everything. That took up a lot of our time, but guess what? The city of Calexico got an appraised property between those 2 parcels that amounts to $1.8 million. So what does that do for us? That gives us the flexibility to work with the development projects that I previously have talked about. Not only that, but emphasize that that is potentially an industrial zone that we can work on a lot of the things that we have began to embark on with our neighbors in Mexicali. So these are opportunities that are there. It came to our attention, we moved as fast as we could, and we got it done the right way. There's no liability to the city. We make sure that the property had no hazardous material. It came out clean, and we were able to close everything before the end of the year. Next slide, please. This is not a very good rendering of what I want to show you, but this is the overall map of the city, and the purpose of this slide was to show you all the city-owned properties that we have. It's not reflective of what you guys should see. It should be a bluish, greenish color, the one that represents all the city-owned properties. And there's some particular areas right there. And again, next time we'll do a better job in presenting this and showing the map. But there's some areas in the city of Calexico that I seriously want to consider in terms of moving forward with a plan, a real estate plan. Given our financial conditions that we're at right now, if we are creative, we can take advantage of some of those infill zones in the city and present a strategy for council to consider, which the city can profit from that. And I'll be happy to share more on that moving forward, but these are the types of things that we need to look at, such as that donation of the property, there's other ways where we can be creative and come up with money that this city needs right now. Next slide, please. This is my final slide. And this shows the players that over the course of the past 5 months have committed to working with the city of Calexico on the economic development perspective, philosophy that we're moving forward with. As you can see, there are some partners from the other side of the border that have committed, that we've actually sold them what it is that we want to do. And they said, you know something, we want to work with the city. In addition to some of our partners that we already know here from this side of the fence. In other words, this is what it's going to take to move forward and begin to do what this city has been known for the longest time. So with that said, this concludes my presentation. As you can see, you will be able and you can anticipate items coming forth to the consideration of this council in the coming meetings. Next slide, please. Thank you. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Questions?
Miguel, felicidades. It was a great report. Some of the stuff, and I'll critique it first, constructive criticism, and then I'll go through the 99.9% positives. A lot of the information, some of the information provided is at the 30,000-foot level, and we need to bring it down significantly. For example, the leases that you mentioned, obviously we need to know, are they paying market rents to us, and if they're not, was there some sort of arrangement done 20, 30 years ago or whatever? We need more information specifically on that. Having said that, there was two, I had to write it down because I didn't want to forget. There was two things that you mentioned specifically. One is real estate, and I'm looking at Linda right next to you, and I've worked with Linda in the past in my prior life. And the other one is business friendly. And Calexico is not categorized in the Imperial Valley as being business friendly. In fact, it's probably the opposite. So the fact that we're bringing the business friendly environment, or at least that term, into play, congratulations. We just need to take it to the next level, obviously. But we're taking baby steps. We're walking before we run. Perfecto. And the other one is obviously focusing on real estate. Real estate and business development are the keys to future job creation, which is what Calexico desperately needs. There is retail stores closing. You mentioned JCPenney. How can we create retail sales when we have no jobs to pay people? I mean, they go hand in hand. You create jobs, you get retail sales. They go hand in hand.
That's right.
It's a very basic economic
Concept.
model. So I congratulate you. I know you're working your butt off. I know we are extremely short-staffed, but this was a great presentation, and we're definitely moving in the right direction. And given the economic environment that we're currently find ourselves in, our financial condition, this is what we really need. So, muchas felicidades.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor? Yes. I congratulate you, Mr. Figueroa. That's an excellent report. And along with Councilman Escobar, you have honed in to a lot of areas that for a long time have been neglected, and many of us have complained about and wanted to see improvement on. And you have identified them, and you are moving forward on them, and that is great. The housing area, I just want to know, you finished, all the reports are completed and submitted, is that correct? Did I hear you right?
All reports that were pending for both programs have been completed. The hiccup right now is the fact that we are working with our finance department, with the state of California, and with the representatives of each program at HCD to make sure that the beginning balances of each report are accurate. If you have a beginning balance that's right, it just trickles down to every other year. So we're getting there, and as soon as we get that, we are ready for the state of California to do a final review of all reports. We get the clearance, and we're going to hit the ground running because now we're going to be eligible to apply for monies.
Maybe this is not fair, but more or less what timeline do you see this?
I'm not going to commit to any specific timeline, but I can give you a ballpark
Ballpark.
scenario. And I would say within 4 to 8 weeks, I anticipate that we can finalize this once and for all.
Very good. One more item, maybe I didn't hear it, but I did hear about J.C. Penney's. What are our goals for downtown? Extremely important to me, downtown.
One of the things, Mr. Hodge, that I credit the fact of seeing downtown deteriorate is the fact that, like I mentioned, over the course of more than 12 months, nothing has happened in terms of making sure that we begin to implement any type of strategy, you name it. So what it is that we need to do is that we need to fast track again. You're going to hear me say that a lot. Stick to the plan, which is make sure that we follow up on what it is that we decide to move forward at our commission level, where we're going to determine what it is that we need to do so you folks can make that determination. Like I mentioned, right now there are initial, I like to call it seed money that's sitting there that's just waiting for it to be planned out so it can be properly used. Besides that, there are other efforts that we are working on to entice downtown merchants to become an extension of the city of Calexico. I think that's also something that has been lost. I've talked to downtown merchants, I've done my rounds, and there's a huge disconnect. And if we're able to establish that connection, I think things will come much faster and smoother, honestly.
Thank you very much, Assistant Manager.
Yeah, again, congratulations on the report. I think you touched on pretty much everything that we wanted to hear about. But you have a hard job ahead of you, particularly where I see the issue and the hiccup I think that we could have in the future is how do you balance the city obviously having a huge financial burden, and I know that I was on the council when we pushed the reduction of business licenses and fees to try and incentivize people to come to Calexico. And I think we need to understand, I'm going to disagree a little bit with one of my council members as far as us not having and he's right, we don't have the jobs here, but we have the border. We have, the whole valley, 70% of the taxes coming into this whole valley come from Mexicali, and we have them next door. So we're definitely not losing business because we don't have the people. The people are here. They're crossing the border. They're coming to the city, but they're choosing to go elsewhere. And that's because the businesses are going elsewhere. We have the highest business licenses. I'll give you an example. Denny's, which has a Denny's in Calexico, one in El Centro. Denny's here pays, I think, $1,300 a year for a business license. Denny's in El Centro pays $89. I mean, and I'm not saying that's going to make or break a Denny's, but it's things like that that seem to be very business unfriendly. We have the highest permitting fees. You got a few contractors here that I saw. I'm sure they can tell you it's definitely more expensive to build here than anywhere else in the valley. How do you fight that and at the same time tell the unions and the city, hey, we're not taking your money? Because when we did that for a year, we did a pilot program in the city of Calexico to match business license fees and permitting fees to other cities in this valley, and everybody screamed to high heaven that we were losing money. How do you sell that and have these people understand, and I'm with you 100%, have these people understand that we're not losing money, we're enticing people to come in?
And that's a point well taken, and that's a great question, Councilman Real. The way we do it, first off, is that we begin to operate in the 21st century in terms of how it is that we conduct our development services, how we conduct our permitting process, how we issue business licenses. One of the things, honestly, I believe is that the biggest thing that I'm going to invest my time on is making sure that my staff and the staff in the city of Calexico understands why some of these changes are needed. I believe that if we get buy-in from everybody and understand why some of these changes are not only needed but required, we're going to be educated to serve our developers and our existing businesses in a better way. I'm not saying that we should, in its entirety, bring down all costs to conduct business in Calexico. What I'm saying is that we should structure it different, where developers don't take the burden of the fees up front before they even begin to put a shovel on the ground. There are ways around how we can conduct business. Like you mentioned, it's going to take time, and it's not going to be a simple thing to accomplish. But I'm a believer that if we do it the right way, where we also can provide you, council, the right tools to make sound decisions on this moving forward, I mean, I think we're going to be suited to address these things the right way, just as you mentioned. Right now, we have another agenda item moving forward with Mega Park. And not to steal their thunder nor get into that item, but that's a perfect example of how it is that we need to conduct business to make sure that we don't hinder developers from coming to town. I'm not getting into the history of nothing. All I'm talking right now, present time moving forward. So those are the types of things that I just want to make sure the council sees that we're moving forward in terms of doing an overall change, an overall overhaul, so we can be successful.
One last thing. As far I know that Councilman Hodge touched on downtown, and one of the things that I've been also advocating for, if you make the rounds downtown and talk to many business owners, and I've done it before, the majority of them will tell you that there's not enough time for the shoppers to actually walk around to all the stores and shop with the parking meters. And I think many will tell you we're the only city in the county that has parking meters. Again, another thing that has been brought to this council and gets turned down because of the income coming from the parking meters, which in reality is in my opinion, is minuscule compared to what we could be making from the business in downtown if they were gone. So just those things to think about. And again, congratulations. I think you hit most of the items that I think are important to the city. Congratulations to you and your staff, and let's keep going. Thank you.
Just two things. Very good, Miguel. You're right on target. I know that our fees are a little higher because we don't have the sales tax that other communities have. El Centro has a large, vast, much more than what we do. So I think we need to look at that, but that's the main reason for that. Thank you for cleaning up the housing. Now that we can start and wait for that to get cleared up and get the monies coming back into the city, thank you for that. Arriba, adelante. Let's look forward and look for these projects to come in and get the city back on its feet. Thank you.
Welcome.
Also want to thank you for all the hard work, all the work that's been going on behind the scenes. I know that I've been participating with you quite a bit with regard to the Mexicali cooperation and the different activities that's been happening with them. I think that what's happening in the city of Calexico, especially in downtown, when I've been asked a couple of times about JCPenney, is that we see those as opportunities. And I believe that if we look at it that way, because we couldn't do anything about it. And, you know, there's comments out there about how our present federal administration indicates that we're going to make America great again and save corporate America. But JCPenney, one of the oldest established corporations, is losing eight stores, and we happen to be one of those. But not good, obviously, as you see other businesses that can close, but at the same time, there are brand new businesses that Calexico has open. I'm in downtown, been there for 30 years. I can make comments with regard to everything that's going on in downtown and the fact that there's an absolute frustration on my part that you just wish that things would be different, that our visitors, when they come to visit, that they'd pick up their trash once in a while and consider the fact that the costs of maintaining a city like ours is very expensive. And so just keeping a downtown bathroom open and in good functioning order is very costly, because we do take care of the impact, the fiscal impact, in many different ways as a border city. But because our downtown has had many different fractures, such as our earthquake, we're still recovering from that. However, you see other things. You see garlands that went into a huge building, and I don't think we ever celebrated that. I just moved, and that was very costly too, but I didn't get anything from my government or anything, and it was just a lot of hard work. And you do have a lot of people here in Calexico that do that. I understand Calexico Brewery is going to be opening here pretty soon. When's that happening? Saturday. Everybody's invited to go out there. It's going to be in his location there next to the Cardenas Market, right? Correct. Yeah, so Cardenas Market also, right? So definitely looking at those as opportunities and staying positive with you, Miguel, and with Mr. Dale, because I see that there's been a lot of positivity, a lot of work being conducted. I look at today's agenda, and I know that there's all kinds of public works projects happening. You guys have a lot in store, and I know that downtown right now is a focus, because if you guys can see, there has been a 100-year celebration for the city of Calexico. At this point, we're going to be celebrating 110, and Mexicali is going to be celebrating 115. These two cities have a lot of very rich history, and so that history and respect towards each other is the opportunities for both of these border cities to continue growing. Of course, Mexicali grew a lot more than we did, but with the assistance and the recognition that Calexico can't be without Mexicali, and Mexicali can't be without Calexico. So we definitely need to take care of that potential. Very much appreciate it. Gentlemen, any other questions on this? Thank you, Mr. Figueroa.
Thank you very much.
Very much. Thank you.
Congratulate your staff, too.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. More power to you. Next presentation then would be Measure H. Would that be you, Mr.
That's
Dale?
me, yes.
If you don't mind, I'm going to sit out. There was one speaker that Norma wanted to make some comments. You want to allow her to do that before or after? All right. I'll just get you with the rest of the group. You had two. You had the one for Measure H, and then you had another one, but you didn't indicate what you wanted on that one.
I just wanted to ask the attorney to please repeat what he read out for closed session in regards to any resolution of negotiation.
Do you mind that, City Attorney? I guess that there was a few people that wanted
Yeah,
to
I
hear
just
if you had any
reported
comments.
that we received direction, but no reportable acts were taken at this time.
Yeah, the usual. All righty. We're going to begin then the Measure H presentation, and I'll get your public comments afterwards. Yes?
Yes. So there's been a lot of discussion in recent months regarding Measure H, where the money is, where it went, how much is left. Me being fairly new to this position, I didn't have all those answers, so we wanted to research this and then also in transparency deliver it to the public so that everyone knows exactly what happened. We are down our finance manager and we are down a finance director, so we had to do this ourselves. So if it isn't perfect, I apologize, but we did our best to get the exact numbers for you. This Measure H was voted in on June 8th, 2010, and it's good for 20 years, so it will sunset in 2030. The ordinance that was passed reads as follows. This was a question to the voters, shall the ordinance to prevent further cuts and preserve funding for general city services, including fire protection and paramedics, police protection and crime prevention, street repair and maintenance, and avoiding closure of recreation programs, parks, and libraries by enacting a half-cent sales tax, a general tax, for 20 years be adopted. And that was approved on June 8th, 2010. In 2010 also, there was a major earthquake, as you may recall. Probably felt it pretty strongly here. And a resolution was adopted by the council to essentially, what they call GASB, I believe it's called, is to take the equivalent of 10% of gross receipts of the Measure H funds and divert them to the emergency that was at hand at that time. One of the policy excerpts is that would be directed that the funds be set aside in the OES Measure H Fund Reserve on an annual basis equivalent to 10% gross receipts of the tax. Adopted a Measure H Reserve. Funds were eventually combined with the general fund reserves and used. The city discontinued the practice of reserving 10% of Measure H revenues for the OES due to the city budget issues. You won't be able to see this, but we can hand out, if upon request, all the information here. Very detailed where every dollar went, and I'm just going to go just basically brief through this. As it was mentioned, 2010 is when the tax started. In 2011 to 2012, there was a balance in the beginning of the year of 1.3 million. In 2012 to 13, there was a beginning balance of 2,065,000. In 2013 to 2004, a beginning balance of 1,036,000, and after that, there's been a zero balance moving forward on Measure H. I can go through this, we'll go through it later, but the bond was 11.2 million that was taken out in approximately 2013. Out of that 11.2 million, there was the 1 million was for the bond premium, basically cost $1 million. 351,000 was the cost of issuance, and we have a $998,000 reserve required for that bond. Some of the uses for that bond up till date was the $3 million for that swimming pool at the high school. There were parks, cultural arts center, another parks and library was spent. Essentially, at the end, we have current balance in that bond currently of 7.141 million right now.
Could we eventually have a copy?
Yeah, I will hand it. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. That is really, but we are going to go some detail in these slides.
Excuse me, how much did you say we have?
The Measure H bond funds that are left?
Yes.
7.141 million. So.
And which obligations are that haven't been concluded on those?
We're doing the fire station with that funds. Mm-hmm. So there was some comments regarding the city absorbing some money from the Measure H back into the general fund without the consent or the request from the Measure H committee. And as far as we can tell, that is true, that the city in its budgeting process in the years 2013 and 2014, and we'll get into the 14, this is the 2012-13, they allocated 1.4 million from the Measure H to the general fund. And again, that was without any request from the Measure H committee. From what we can tell, the Measure H committee has not really been very involved since about 2013. So in 2013 to 14, again, the city in its budgeting process allocated $2.178 million from Measure H into the general fund. And once again, we can't find anything where the Measure H committee was consulted. In some of that money, public safety was $1 million, a fire equipment lease $204,000, recreational summer program $140,000, repairs $9,693, and legal bond costs of $26,000. $161,030 transferred in the general fund in addition to the budgeted and approved expenses. In the meeting minutes of January 5th, 2016, the City Council meeting was requested that contingency funds that were labeled as Measure H and contingency reserve and budgeted as CIP projects. By implementing the 2014 to 15 budget, the Measure H funds combined with the contingency reserve funds and were appropriated by projects and subsequently spent. There was a resolution, again, we just went through that on this current budget process in 2018-06 that approximately 410,000 that was from the prior year and from this year as well. This was projected, the 300,000 was projected to be a surplus funds from Measure H. were, again, sent to the general fund. There was a request for a Measure H committee, but that didn't work out very well in that particular case. In 2014, the Measure H committee was approached to transfer $678,750 from the Measure H bond. The Measure H committee rejected that request. It was subsequently brought back to the council, and the council approved that those funds to be transferred the measure to the general fund. Again, the 2014 Measure H bonds. This is just information regarding those existing bonds. We've looked at if we can refinance them, if we can call the bonds, et cetera. They cannot be refinanced. They cannot be called until April 1st, 2024. And the project that the bond monies are designated for can be revised via council resolution. What I can say is, I mean, this is learning process for myself and learning all these things that happen and how it goes apart. And I think that Measure H committee should have been consulted. And all we can do at this point is beg forgiveness, and it doesn't do much good for you, I understand that, but...
Well, legally, may I interject a question?
Yes.
Legally, and that's something that I've discussed a lot with a lot of the different members of Measure H throughout the years, when the concern has occurred that is appearing tonight and what you're talking about tonight, which is that there were actions and activities that occurred in the account without consulting the committee or the
Yes.
the oversight committee legally. Is the concern back then? I would tell the certain members that were approaching me, I'll say 4 years ago, 3 years ago, talk to the attorney and ask the attorney if there is a need to reverse it out, or what is, because there probably will be no solution within a council. It appears that this is a possible a legal concern, I guess. But what would be the actual legal response to something like that, where you have oversight committees that are shaped up for a community to have as a buffer, and they aren't being
Utilized.
adhered to, correct? Is there any corrections that need to occur?
Well, I
Or
mean,
was that, I guess what I need to have maybe even is there an illegal activity that occurred there that we need to address? Because if we need to, I think that that's what the community may be looking for.
in terms of just strictly from the legal, I don't, it seems, and we had the same question earlier, that they should have, the way it was set up, you should have gone to the Measure H committee. That was a process, and obviously the process wasn't followed. But that because the city council ultimately was the authority who could spend the monies, and these were general fund money. These were not enterprise or specifically designated to be used for, say, police or fire. The city could go ahead and allocate those funds. So
you're saying, I don't believe we could do the back and forth, Normita, at this point. Allow me to continue asking a couple of questions. Because we also had something similar this year with regard to, for example, the bid or the downtown meters, that there's a debate there if they're good or they're not good for the community. There was also some issues with that there was certain decisions being made without coming to council, and it had to do with revenue, right? So a lot of these oversight opportunities and these oversight structures that this city should have is where the concern is of the community. Because, as you can say, you said now, the Measure H has not met in many years. And so the suspicions, the concerns, the questions, the doubts were never answered for the last 4 years. So, you know, it's kind of sad that it's been 4 years and you still have that question. So at this point, here in front of everyone, I'd like to know was there something there legally that we need to undo?
I'm not, at this point, I don't see that. Obviously, the process wasn't followed, but ultimately, because city council was a body who ultimately can allocate how these funds are going to be spent, and all the decisions did come to the city council. City council did make these decisions. I don't see that the fact the process wasn't followed, that would undo those decisions of the city council.
I will ask you later on the revenues for the parking meters, because the revenues on the parking meters were also, I have parking in front of my office, and when I saw that they had the covers, I did not recall that even the council had made a decision to stop those revenues.
We didn't.
No, we didn't. So that actually happened here on council as well.
And we had before.
So we're having a problem with oversight. And so that's why I'm asking the attorney right now that I think we need to look at overall revenues and the manner in which we are addressing that, because we cannot just make a change and a new decision without respecting the fact that it's revenue, first of all, and the oversight of it. So I'm glad we're having that conversation, and thank you. Measure H is a complicated situation, obviously. It's not a very old fund. So I hope that helps with the legal part of the circumstances. It's not helping, apparently, right? But at this point, because it's a presentation, it's a little hard, Normita, to go into too much conversation. Maybe right now afterwards, we can go in there a little bit, as far as having you have a few more questions directly afterwards. I want to actually ask the council to see if there's any questions that you may have, and then we'll go there.
May I? Let me start with great presentation. I actually have been bugged a lot, specifically about 2 years ago by some Measure H board members. I know Norma is very adamant about what's happened in Measure H. And at the time, I actually did take the time to ask these legal questions already. We actually spent money, city monies, looking at this, and I believe the Rutan and Tucker were the attorneys at the time. And what I was told from the city manager at the time that this happened was that legally, because the way it was sold to the people was, I don't want to say that they were that the people were lied to, but the way it was sold wasn't the way it was written. And unfortunately, this city manager, along with Rutan and Tucker, the firm, felt that the way it was written could be understood that they could take the monies whenever they wanted without going to Measure H. And my understanding is the way it's worded, legally they could. Now, I wasn't for that. Unfortunately, it happened. And one of the other mechanisms that they used was to include it in the agenda and say if you adopted the agenda, then you adopted that transfer of funds. And so I guess in a sense the council was also lied to. I obviously now we know that the budgets that were given those 2 years were completely, I want to say, fake, I guess. And that's what happened at that time. And again, the past is the past. I think it's what we do with Measure H now on. I truly believe that the Measure H committee is important for that. What's going to happen next time that the city needs to have another measure? Nobody's going to trust us. Nobody's going to trust the Measure H committee, the city council. Why? Because it's just spending these funds like however it wants. And so there needs to be that oversight. Again, the council's also jumping the Measure H. Measure H says no, the council says yes, and it's done. I don't know if that's the way the wording is, but I just hope that in the future this ends up working out, because obviously Measure H is needed, and it's unfortunate what's happened in the past. Believe me, we were lied to, and it is what it is. So let's move forward. Thank you for your presentation, though.
Yeah. Mr. Dale, thank you for the information, thank you for the disclosure and for the history. I've only been on council for a little over a year, so it was definitely a learning experience for me as well. Disappointed. Disappointed because at the end of the day, I am paying into it, just like most people here. And the disclosure is unfortunately a little late. Better late than never, but a little late. If we have a commission, let's respect that commission. And we can't go back to 16, 17, 15, 14. We can move forward and we can make things better. Or we can make things right moving forward. And if we have a commission, let's respect that commission. And let's listen to that commission. And if we're not going to listen to that commission as a collective city council, why have that commission? So moving forward, I strongly encourage for us to respect the commission and have that commission be a voice for the taxpayer, which is all of us.
And I agree with that.
Thank you.
We'll use the oversight committee, what they're supposed to be doing, and
Like I
get,
said,
get them to work.
The problem is that we have it overall, because we also have the problem with the other revenues, that we did not have a resolution for council. Okay, we didn't have a resolution for the bid either, and those are the revenues that we also look, because it's everywhere, as far as the overlapping. So we'll have to do them all, right? Alrighty, thank you so much, Mr. Dale. I know that was a lot of work for you to
right.
go over. One question I think that's really important, probably for the community to understand at this given point, in rough numbers, as far as revenues on a yearly basis, your Measure H account is receiving on a yearly basis approximately how much?
$2.5 million.
Okay. Of that yearly amount that's coming in, and it's pretty much over, every year you're kind of averaging around there, kind of a little up and down, tiny bit.
It's all
But of those 2 million approximately, how much is already committed on a yearly basis where we can't even touch it anyway?
So we got $1 million a year as the debt service,
Right.
right off the bat. And
Right.
then you have, we're $850,000 is dedicated to the public safety
To police and fire?
in terms of police. And $400,000 is dedicated to fire every year.
Okay.
And
So that's pretty much the 2 million already.
that's a lot of it, yeah.
So I hope you understand that that means that the Measure H is fully committed at this time, and any available revenues will be tight.
There are some residual monies left sometimes, and that's what happened in this budget, where they put the $300,000.
Correct.
Mr. Dale,
Alrighty.
I want to thank you because I had requested this item. So thank you for your very hard work. It clarified a lot of areas for me, and it gave a bigger picture. And
Moving forward,
I
we
feel
wanna
like I need
disclose
to
everything.
apologize for us going forward without having the oversight committee approached first and having allow them to do their job. So that's a correction that we definitely need to make.
Agreed.
Alrighty. Thank you so much. Alrighty, next, I'll let you go first, how's that? Let me do the housekeeping here. Public comments and public appearances, note, not to exceed 3 minutes. This is the time for the public to address the city council on any item not appearing on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. The mayor will recognize you, and when you come to this microphone, please state your name and place of residence for the record. While members of the public are encouraged to participate, it is unlawful to disturb or delay the council meeting with personal or slanderous remarks. If the item you wish to comment on is a consent item, please comment now. The city council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included on the printed agenda. If the item you wish to comment on is on the public portion of the agenda, we will take your comment when we get to that item on the agenda. Please direct your questions and comments to the city council. Alrighty, so go ahead, Norma. I'll use this one here that's
Good evening, Norma Aguilar, 839 Heber Avenue. Thank you for the report, but I want to point out, like you said, Mr. Dale, it's not complete. And I want to share my perspective, or facts rather, it's not perspective. One of the things, I will beg your indulgence, Madam Mayor, because I'm going to go past a little bit than the 3 minutes. I'll keep talking until I need to finish. Because you guys have had a chance to be able to, you had the presentation, you had your input. So I want to provide you some facts. We have not, first of all, when the Measure H is an oversight committee. It is not a commission, it is not a committee. It's an oversight committee. And if I'm not mistaken, that was part of the language. I didn't see it in part of the where you presented. Now, I want to correct the attorney, and respectfully so, because Measure H, once it formed, we knew that it was a general obligation, it was a general tax, okay? But we knew it had been sold to the public as being for fire, for police, and for senior citizens. So that first committee, of which I was a part of, we adhered as much as possible to the spirit of it. Having said that, we developed bylaws that stipulated how it should be done, and including the 10%, but I'll leave the 10%. Okay, so when we prepared those bylaws, we worked on it, presented it to the city council approved it. Okay, so within that language also was that 10% aside, when the city manager recently just said, and I know it's not your fault, okay, I'm not blaming you. So, but the fact is that 10% was, I guess, encumbered, but what you don't realize is that 10% was part of that bylaws language. So unless you guys went and undid the past vote to not encumber those 10% from the Measure H, then this was an illegal action, because only the people who are part of the vote and on the deciding vote can reverse that. And I don't think any of the majority of did that. I don't know. That's some homework for you, for the attorney. Now, in terms of the 678,000+ that was turned down by the Measure H, it was turned down because we had gotten a presentation by the finance manager back then, and he presented it as a done deal, that the council had approved this budget. And I questioned it and said, well, wait a minute, how is it that all this money is expended when it never came to us? And the gentleman told me, well, if the council approved it, that's all it needs. We don't need to come to you. Well, I said, well, then there you go. Then 2 weeks later, comes back and wants to present it again for us to do a retroactive vote. Yes. So that's where that 678,000. Another point of clarification I want to point out, or maybe I misunderstood you, Mr. Dale, because you said that 10% was expended, or did I misunderstand that? Because it seemed to me like you were saying that 10% was expended during when we had the earthquake, but
It was intended for the earthquake. I don't think anything was expended.
no, we didn't have it. We didn't have that money then. So that 10% had actually accumulated to almost $500,000. And so I would like a copy of that report. And I want to tell you that I hope that you come back and give us a report in terms of whether that 10% was retroactively, how did it
Okay.
go about that you can override that?
All right, I have a better idea, Norma, because we're already beyond a little bit too much time on this one, okay?
So-
But I do have a better
And
idea.
hope you guys swear us in pretty soon.
I'm sorry?
That's it. Thank you.
I didn't get to hear you, Norma. I have a better idea. I think that maybe, City Manager, that maybe the Measure H committee should sit down with legal and go over what this legal question is, because they've had the legal question for the last 5 years.
The grand jury looked into this, I believe.
The grand jury apparently came and they were going to visit with everyone to ask questions. I believe that they visited with some of the members of the Measure H. The Measure H committee members have disbanded and they weren't together anymore. But as far as I understand from staff and from the past city manager, is that the grand jury walked away indicating that there was nothing there as far as any activity that may have been questionable. So I believe what they had was the opportunity to take a good look at the accounting. And it was just accounting issues that are also difficult to understand because it has been complex. But this issue that you're so worried about, I think you need to just sit down with legal and once and for all, just get that settled. Thank you so much, very, very much. We're going to move on then to the next public comments, and I have several. So I'm going to have to adhere now to the 3 minutes from here on in. Let's go ahead and start here with Mr. Gonzalez.
We can talk generally. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, Council, members of the public, staff. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Mr. Figueroa. When he gave a presentation at the Rotary Club, we were very excited Let me tell you a little bit about Mr. Figueroa. I didn't know Mr. Figueroa. In 2015, we had, as a student at graduate student at San Diego State, we have been working with 18 agencies, national, international, and local agencies for the San Diego State research competition. We entered that competition just for fun. And we have been working with 18 agencies. It's the New River Committee International. But several months before the research, we said, we don't have something here, so the New New River director never answered us. We visited Mr. Miguel at his new job. He gave us all the information. That's the first time San Diego State University in Imperial Valley campus wins the San Diego State research competition. Out of 486 researchers, San Diego State, myself and my partner, but we never thanked the agencies that participated. It was the first time, and probably the last time for many years. It's a very, very tense competition, but we want to thank him. He gave us all the information, he had all the knowledge, and without him, he wasn't the director anymore. Without him, we couldn't have achieved this. Thank you, Miguel. And the other thing is that the city is getting great with the team that prior City Manager King, but we have one issue that we like to address, the community. The community needs to start cooperating, working together. We had 20 clubs about 15 years ago. Today we have 1 or 2 clubs. That's all we have. We always complain, me being the first, regarding the public politics and everything, but we also do things. For the last 20 years, we've been a neighborhood watch captain. For the last 8, we haven't had crime prevention services in Calexico and in the state. So we haven't got training and recertified and everything. We just saw there, Metro H says crime prevention. Twice we have bought, our citizens have bought the signs. They need replacement again, and we're not going to buy them. We put in our time, and it's very dangerous to be out neighborhood watch, especially in Kennedy Gardens, but we've done it for 18 years. Tomorrow, I'll submit a letter to Mrs. Aguilar requesting Metro H pay for new signs. It's just $800. We put in our time. I myself have been stabbed, have been beaten, but we don't give up. So tomorrow, for the Metro H, whether it succeeds or not, we're going to submit a letter. Why? Because on April 28th, a coalition of community friends, organizations, and agencies will celebrate Earth Day and Arbor Day and Dia del Niño at Calexico. We are holding the health, safety, and environmental fair in Calexico. Because why? Because it is needed. It is something that is grassroots. It's basically citizens, and thanks to our city chief of police, who knows that nothing can get done without the participation of citizens. And that's what we're doing. We hope Mr. Escobar is in our committee. We've been working with a lot of agencies. Everybody is just helping us. We just met with Comité Cívico del Valle. They're going to handle everything about the environment. Next week, we meet with Mexicali, and we're not agencies, we're just citizens. And Mexicali there, el Secretaría de Seguridad, they'll be here. We already have the okay from McGrath. He'll be flying into the event. We just want to say that we like what Miguel is doing, but we as citizens, we need to come together. We need to come together, start working, especially on what is safety, health, and the environment. Why we added environment? Because it's getting bad here, very bad. I don't know if you noticed. I'll just take 20 seconds more.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Thank you very much. Mr. Ben
Gracias.
What you're asking is for civic involvement.
You're next.
What was that?
Civic involvement.
Civic involvement. We need everybody's support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Or participation.
Madam Mayor, City Council, distinguished members of the community. The reason I'm coming forward today is to discuss a factor, and I'm sure you're aware of it, the Grand Plaza. And I'm talking about the CFD. There's been some issues saying that it is is to be paid by property tax or sales tax. Well, I have first information from the person that negotiated that CFD. And the way he put it to me, it was supposed to be by sales tax. But it doesn't stop there. I'm not going to just say something without getting all the information. Starting tomorrow, I'm going to be requesting information through public records to put all this together, and also to look at some of the charges that the city has put forth. And we're going to bring this through the Economic Financial Commission of the City of Calexico, and we're going to move forward. There will be a document that the City Council will be having that will talk about the CFD, and we're going to be looking at some of the charges, and this is going to be worked by my counterpart, who, I want this to be said, I support the police and fire department of the City of Calexico. It's a great institution, and for us to lose them will be a travesty to this city. We have history, and we have everything. There was a study that was done about 20 years ago by Stanford, and they talked about the fundamentals and the emotion. Sometimes the fundamentals are just pushed aside, and we go by emotions. And I think sometimes we should get back to the fundamentals and look at this and move forward with it. Now, with all due respect to the attorneys, there have been some issues about how much they have been paid. Now, if you go over your budget, what should you do? You come to the City Council, ask for the right to go over a certain amount. But if you don't ask for that, what happens? If you go over, who's at fault for it? You for doing it, or the City Council for not knowing it? These are questions that we're going to be putting forth, and we're going to start looking at. And I'm going to do my very best to take care of our brothers in blue. And I guess the brothers in blue and fire department, they both were blue. And ladies and gentlemen, about a month ago, I had a mild heart attack here at the City Hall. I cannot say how much I owe to the fire department and the paramedics. And to me, I have a debt that I cannot pay, but I will do my best to pay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Horton. Chris Velasco? I believe it says that. Hi. No, sir.
I came to you guys back in January. Basically, let me reintroduce myself. I'm the guy that started the Clean Tech Ag Company, and we have our site in Hopeville. And I have a lot of ideas about downtown. I actually emailed Mr. Figueroa. I have a planning degree, and there's so many things you can do. That brewery should be downtown. It should be walkable. There needs to be way more trees down there. And it's just, I have so many ideas, but that's not why I'm here. Why I'm here is because I want to build an accessory dwelling unit in the back of my family property out of shipping containers. You remember me now? And I have a copy of San Diego's sort of information bulletin about how to do it, and maybe you guys could take a look at it and sort of draft an ordinance, because last time it seemed like you guys were pretty receptive to the idea. If not, let me know. I won't waste my time. So here it is. I give it to the clerk. I have 3 copies right here, and this is actually, I have 2 copies of this one my printer gave out. This is a multi-unit
Sir, can I ask you your name?
Chris Velasco.
Chris Velasco. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if may I just ask him a question? If it's possible, I understand your concept.
Sure.
But I don't know if you're going about it the right way.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you would be willing to come and give maybe a 5-minute presentation. I personally know these shipping container homes are beautiful, but I don't know if the rest of the council
Sure.
has seen it. I think it's important that maybe maybe next council meeting we can pencil you in 5 minutes. You can give a presentation.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Because it's not just homes, it's commercial, but they're being made into many different.
You have a lot of
streams.
infill development
So
opportunities.
maybe that would help us
Yeah.
as well. Just a thought.
Would you like to finish your 3 minutes now, or would you like to do that?
Shipping container.
Sir, would you like to do your 3 minutes now, or would you like to come on another opportunity?
To give you a presentation?
Well, it's because you are at public comments. Public comments is just 3 minutes.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much done.
Okay.
I just want to say,
I'm sorry, but I'm going to go ahead and give you 2 more minutes. How's that?
okay, great. I'll give my ideas on downtown now, because now it's 2 minutes. It's walkable. It's flat, which is great. It's not like San Diego where you're walking around everywhere. the climate's getting hotter, right? The heat wave that we had last year, we hit 124. That's going to happen a lot more often. I was a PhD student for a short time in New Mexico State, water science and management, and I read through the data. That sort of stuff's going to be happening. The city of Calexico should prepare by putting a lot more trees, by aloe those mesquites, stuff that is adapted to the climate, because the climate is we are going to have those swings. And it would make it cooler, and it'd make it more walkable. You just got to think about towns. Like, look at Marfa, Texas. That town was dead, right? And look at it now. Beyonce went on vacation there a couple years ago because it's cool, it's artsy, it's fun. Not saying that you guys are going to do the same thing, but look at downtown El Paso. Look how they revitalized their downtown by bringing people from Juarez over. There's a lot of opportunity in this town. There's a lot of people that want to spend money from Mexicali, but they want to do it somewhere cool, you know? People my age, we don't want to go hang out at the mall. We don't go drive around a parking lot. I want to walk around downtown. I want to feel it. You know, I go to that Hope Cafe. That's the closest thing you guys have here, and it's awesome. You guys should build on that. You have a great core. You never destroyed it in the 60s like other towns did. Thank you.
Thanks. As a matter of fact, that's what I'm trying to say is that Hope Cafe is local people, no corporate money. And that's probably where we need to motivate, is a lot of the local people.
I would love to build my new headquarters down here.
Man's over there. Thank you so much for your comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Beaver, you're next.
James Beaver, Police Calexico Advisory Commission. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. I put before you little items here that they're actually from time back, and I never got the chance to thank the council for allowing for the request I made of a letter that I needed. And I want to thank you. In that doing, the city attorney, he answered a question by Councilman Real as far as what would be the trouble of issuing such a license to any commissioner's position in that area. And he responded it was background. We didn't want to get involved with background. So that brought me to another item in which I put a couple of cartoons here for you guys, just to get my point across to you without spending more than my time. But I don't see why not the city doesn't adopt an ordinance. I know I've talked to the previous city manager, is why he does not require background for commissioners. I just don't understand that. And I'm talking about, you know, not an FBI check or anything like that, a live scan, that they'll pay for it if they're interested in the position. That would help the integrity of the city. We wouldn't have to worry about that issue as far as identifying a person's commission. No exams or anything like that. So I briefly just wanted to make my point with some cartoons. Also another item too, as Escobar mentioned a couple months ago, safety in downtown areas coming from the border, getting on taxi drivers, taxi cabs that weren't air conditioning. I did some web research on that, and all I could find is, and I had the city's names that actually the council really had to adopt that. Would have to put it on the agenda. So I got concerned with that because to me that was also a safety issue. On the bylaws of the police commissioner advisory, it's not just police citizens complaints on police officers. It's safety concerns, safety matters, empty warehouses, whatever is concerned, even down to city employees. So just to answer that question, Mr. Escobar, I did do some research, and it would have to be an agenda, and the city would have to actually vote for that to make it a law. I didn't see any state laws requiring that, or municipals. With the other concern is I cross 98 on a regular basis. I got to pick up 3 grandkids at 3 different hours, and I'm getting a little bit intimidated on Highway 98. The last page, item 3, actually goes into detail.
Mr. Beaver?
Yes.
Your time's up, okay?
Okay. Well, thank you, but go ahead and read some homework for you guys. Appreciate it. And we can do something about that traffic.
I like your
Thank you.
cartoons.
Only Hajj? What's the rest of it?
Lydia?
They were good, they were good.
Ms. Enriquez? Ms. Enriquez left a message and she's got some signatures here. I guess she's gone? She's probably supporting the other item on that. Okay. Next speaker, Sean Acuna?
Good evening, members of the council. Sean Acuna, President for the Calexico Officers Association. The document you have before you is the agreement between the Grand Plaza CFD bond, City of Calexico. And I'm getting conflicting statements on what's actually going on with this, and I just urge the council and the city administration to look into it to get further clarification, because we have a shortfall of about $700,000, and this would significantly close that gap. So the Grand Plaza, initially purported or projected that they would generate $1 million in sales tax per year. The city of Calexico receives $300,000 of that, and then the $604,000 is a bond that gets paid for through the sales tax. So what happened apparently last year, only $482,000 was generated. The city of Calexico took the $300,000. That only left a small amount, I think $184,000, if I'm correct, or $182,000. So you take that $182,000, you subtract it from the 604, the $604,000, you're left with $422,000. So I'm being told that the city of Calexico is paying the $422,000 towards this bond when it's the obligation of the Grand Plaza, not the city of Calexico. So I had a conversation this morning with the city manager, and he clarified that that wasn't necessarily correct, that it had been rectified by Susan Mayer, where I guess those monies had not been initially placed into the CFD account. It went into either general fund or possibly the enterprise fund, so that's why it showed up negative. And then I got an email, I guess he contacted Susan Mayer, and she responded saying it had to do with property tax. Well, we're not talking about the property tax. The Grand Plaza is paying the property tax like they're supposed to. The issue is this is sales tax. And I just want you, I'm not blaming anybody, but if you could just please look into the document that I showed you to see, it clearly states that the city of Calexico is not responsible for whatever shortfall. So if the Grand Plaza doesn't generate $1 million in sales tax, obviously they can't pay the $604,000 bond. They're responsible for whatever shortage there is to pay that bond, not the city. So, like I said, I'm getting conflicting statements on which is what, and I just urge the council to look into it, because if the Grand Plaza is supposed to be paying $422,000, that would drastically reduce the $700,000 deficit that we currently have. That's all I have.
Could I make a comment on that?
I'd rather not.
Okay.
I'd rather not.
I'll save it for for council comments.
Okay. Appreciate that. Alrighty, Alex Perny?
Honorable Mayor and City Council, first I want to start by commending Miguel. You've been doing a great job, and also your staff, Belinda and Veronica. In many years, I had not seen a report like that, so it really brings enthusiasm and more confidence in Calexico and developing here. Something else I'd like to touch on is the JCPenney closing. I would really encourage the city to reach out, because it's one of the stores they had picked. I don't think the whole chain is going to close down, because it's a historic store. It's been here 100 years. I worked there. Many people in town have worked there. So it would be really nice to see what we can do to keep it here. And us in the Planning Commission are also doing our part in economic development. Thanks to Ralph, we put on our next agenda, we want to do downtown mixed use. And I would encourage our Economic Development Commission and all working together on this, because if we have development downtown, just imagine if it gets to the years of developers in Los Angeles and San Diego that we're doing mixed use. Yes. It's going to really sprawl a lot of development. So We are doing our part, and I'm very excited on that item. Also, I've heard a lot of Ben Horton's trying to bring in a campus or dorms. I encourage it. Just imagine us having a city that's a campus community. It creates jobs, it creates housing, it creates a more educated community. And so I really believe the cities should take great part in this, because I would love to see it. Just imagine, we don't have much industry we do here. Now just imagine a campus community, all the jobs it's going to create. So let's encourage it and let's help them. Also, on losing our sales in our downtown area, it deals a lot with the Amazon, the internet sales. They're taking a big chunk of our downtown, our malls. So we really need to get our bid and our Economic Development Commission to see how we can, have ideals to keep sales locally, encourage our community, encourage our county to shop local and keep on buying. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Yepes.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members and ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jose Luis Yepes. I represent Calexico Brewing Company. Here cordially to invite you for the ribbon cutting ceremony this next Saturday, February 24th at 5 p.m. Please join us. The boys couldn't make it tonight because they're brewing beer. So that being said, they say hi. And I'd like to thank, first and foremost, a couple of people here that have been helping us out throughout this venture, and that would be Miguel Figueroa. Yes, he is making things very friendly in the city of Calexico. Armando Real and Mr. Renaissance, I believe he left, but all a part of these small little details that the boys were going through these hoops and made it a lot more easier. We're very, very happy to be a part of this community. My boys are Bulldogs, and we've enjoyed growing within. Brewing beer is an art. It's very beautiful. And yes, we want to be a part of this community and the growth of the community. We are looking forward to expanding in the near future, downtown Calexico, and working with ideas with the city to make it better. Actually, we do have very close ties with the brewers in Mexicali. So that being said, there is many, many things that we can do to promote the growth of this city. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you all there for the ribbon ceremony and to enjoy some excellent beer.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to city council comments. To my right, Mr. Escobar.
He's going somewhere, but.
I didn't even see him go.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Mr. Pacheco.
Mr. Dale, I know we're having some overlays on the streets.
Mhm.
Who takes care of the alleys? Alleys. The
Residential?
alleys are- residential alleys.
The city maintains the alleys as well.
Okay, some alleys are down to dust and there's no covering, there's no asphalt, there's gravel, and there's a lot of dust in the air, and that's causing a problem with some residents. They have a lot of apartments on their alleyways, and they're concerned about all the dirt and dust.
Okay.
So I don't know if we have any plans for future covering or gravel, or I don't know what we do to alleys.
We just need to know the specific alleys and we can look at them.
Get to the address.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we do take care of the alleys?
We do.
Residential? Okay. Well, other than that, thank you for the light. I got a light in my house now. I can leave my car outside.
You can wash your car at night now?
Wash my car in the night. We're missing the light for about 3 years, but it got done. Thank the crew. The guys did a good job. IID came in, installed the connection. It was a matter of 2 weeks' work time when they were there. Thank them. That's it.
Good job.
This is an item, this is on item 4, agenda item 4. I just, right now with the economic situation of the city, I'm definitely going over our, our warrants and our costs every month a lot more than I probably should. But, you know, I think it's time for the city to start really looking at, you know, these small but small expenses, but they add up. You know, you start looking at veterinary care, a lot of catering, a lot of things like that that the city's spending money on. Specifically, the veterinary care is something I want to touch on because I don't know how many council members are aware, but there is a huge cat problem in this city. I posted a video online. It's ridiculous how the cat infestation is everywhere, specifically more in the southern part of the city. They bring a lot of infectious diseases. I mean, it's a definite big problem. And I know I haven't brought it up to the city manager or assistant city manager, but I'm bringing it up now. It kind of skipped my head last meeting, but it's something that we need to start asking ourselves as a city. Can we afford our own, pet control or you know, I know that the county was looking at taking that over. You know, why don't we let the county take that over and get rid of that cost that the city's incurring because of this? They have more manpower, more people to do it. It's just something that we can look at. But it's a huge problem. I know people probably, cats, dogs, no big deal when human lives are on the line, but it's people that can get sick from the infestations that are happening. I also wanted to talk about another issue, the Four Corners on Cole and Rockwood, which are, we actually had a person that was, that died from for being run over at that intersection.
When was that?
It still has 4 lights that are out. And it's been like this, I'm sure the police remember that fatality there. Even till this day, those lights haven't been fixed. And I think we're lucky that nobody in that family made a big deal about that. But, I mean, 4 lights out, somebody gets run over, I mean, it smells like a lawsuit. Can we get those fixed as soon as possible? And they are city lights. They're not
What
IED.
intersection?
That's already been, Cole and Rockwood. Cole and Rockwood. I also wanted to speak a little bit about when the council decides to do things, the implementation also is taking a long time. And I guess you guys are new, but for example, there was a vote to start a pilot program on the closure of Rockwood between 1st and 2nd Street to get that city center going. I know there's even renderings the city has done on creating that so that we can have a community area like the gentleman, I forget Carlos, I think was his name, you know, a place for the young people can go and hang out and maybe do live music, you know, beer tasting, whatever. But I think we need something like that, and that's the perfect spot. It was voted on. Again, it just hasn't been implemented. A long time, yeah.
Voted on?
Yeah, it was voted on. And again, just these costs. You know, we need to really look at everything right now. You know, 500 here, 1,000 here, 2,000 here. You know, every month that adds up to probably $500,000 a year, which is about what we need. So let's just make sure that we're looking at everything, and that's it.
City Manager Dale, I think, I don't know how to approach this, just to look into it and consider it, but I've been told, and I think you've mentioned it to me, that we have a lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but we have positions that are interim. And I'm thinking of the human condition here of these people. It brings down morale. and it keeps them on the fence in limbo land for years. It's really, in a sense, kind of cruel to treat people like that. So I think part of your legacy would be to see if we could change that. You know, not have them be in term or whatever we want to do with those positions. But I know that some of them have been that way for years. That's a long time. Thank you.
Okay, I do have a few things to talk about. I wanted to kind of address what you were talking about, Mr. Real, the animal situation and population of the city. We have a holding area in the city, and it is not for adoptions. It only holds the animals.
Right.
We do not hold cats. Apparently, the cats, what the recommendation to the community is, do not feed them. If you feed them, they will come around. So the recommendation is not to feed them, so that way they do not come. What the city does is that they deliver their animals to the Humane Society, which means they are not put to sleep. The county, as far as I understand, does put animals to sleep. So I personally would not want to work with the county if that is the results of our animals in Calexico being picked up and being put to sleep automatically. So there's still another consideration there with regard to that. And yes, we do have other expenses that are a little smaller like that, but animal control is really important in the city, and I know that there's a lot of relationship with the last city manager with the Humane Society, because Humane Society also has issues with funding and things like that. So there's a lot to learn with regard to that, and again, the best recommendation, if you see that there's an infestation of cats, just do not feed them. That's the best thing to do. I'm sorry? The couple of last weeks, we have had a lot of meetings. We just had a meeting last week. The city manager and I, we went to Mexicali, and together with Supervisor Renison, we were able to meet with the representatives of Mexicali Aduana, which is the authorities at the border. Those authorities that control the time we have to wait in line to get into Mexicali, and the fact that Calexico has very long lines at this point. Correct. And it's not normal, as we all know, that we live in Calexico, and usually around this time you don't have those long lines. So it was a question of understanding why that's happening.
Excellent.
So we were able to be given great information from the agents at the aduana, and what it is that they did install a new system.
Excuse me, repeat that again?
They installed a new system, a new
The lifts.
the lifts, and so it does cause another additional pause. And so what the conversation was, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that they are going to be willing to adjust their schedules of employees to be able to address peak time and to maintain contact with our staff, which they already do, that when our staff starts to see that there's long lines at any hour of the day that's beginning to accumulate, they begin to have their contacts.
Well, I commend you. That's a great accomplishment.
That was something really important. I also want to thank Mr. Renison, because he actually did set up that meeting. It was actually a great meeting because we got to know each other, and I think that that's where the most important relationships are established with those Mexicali authorities, that when we need them, that we can just pick up the phone or have them on WhatsApp or something like that, right? So I thought that that was a great meeting, and we're going to continue working together with them to be able to find some kind of resolution on the long lines. Okay? So that happened. Because as Mr. Figueroa was saying, the city of Calexico right now does have quite a bit of excellent relationships forming. There's a lot of plans, Mr. Yepes, for your sons. They have a lot to do with the economic development of Calexico, because what they accomplished was amazing. And so the focus on downtown is a job that Mr. Figueroa has a plan. And within all of that plan, we also have the intention to make it look better within some kind of city center kind of idea with the bid assisting. But there's important things that are going to be occurring, and I think it's important also to announce that Mexicali is really excited to say that they will be celebrating their 115th birthday next month. And they actually want to do a lot of this international cultural things with Calexico. We are now invited. The city mayor is offering a concert to the city of Calexico, and it's actually really special. They came down last week and talked to us about that. So Mr. Figueroa has that within his plans as well. But as we're going to be taking all of this public and all of this attention down to downtown, yes, there has to be an overall team effort between the business owners, those excited individuals that know that that's what we want to do. We want to clean up Calexico. Some of the local organizations, I just talked to Maribel Padilla yesterday. I want to talk to her. She used to do downtown cleanups once a month. And it was awesome. We brought out a lot of the kids of the community, and right, Mr. Hodge?
Yes.
We used to do that a lot. So we need to go back in there and do that kind of thing and get ready for the months of March and the months of April, because the city of Calexico and Mexicali will be celebrating, and we want to be able to lift it up in many different ways. And so thank you for coming, and I did get to tell you that your boys are in there. And the reason is that we also are going to be celebrating our 110th anniversary as a city, and I think I mentioned that to you before. And there is going to be quite a number of events scheduled around that period of time. That includes a mayor's summit, and that's what we want to do. We want to bring those mayors here to the city of Calexico, from Yuma, from San Luis, from the whole valley, and feature to them the important things and the special things that Calexico has, like your sons. So we have had experiences in economic development opportunities in the other cities that we visit with our sister cities, Mexicali. We've gone to Ciudad Juarez and seen the economic development efforts in those border cities. So we want to emulate all of that and have our own plan, and we need you there. So I really appreciate the hard work that you have been doing in the city manager, because a lot of this focus is to make things a lot better. And so we've been really busy with that. The other and last thing I think I'll talk about is with regard to the business licenses and the rate studies. It is true, there was the pilot program that did occur. However, I believe that the lesson that we learned from that is that rate studies are very important. The decision was a knee-jerk decision when that occurred. The council alone made that decision. Many criticized that because it probably was the wrong time to make that kind of a decision to reduce our business license fees at that time, because shortly after that decision was made, we had to decide to give our union employees a 30% pay cut. So the following activity that the city does conduct with regard to reductions of business license and stuff like that, we definitely need to do it with a study. And with a study, then we will have the appropriate results and done appropriately, and not according to personal judgments, because our business license situation is extremely complicated. We charge according to information that our city receives from belonging to an association of financial consulting. So if the city receives that type of recommendations, and we're applying those recommendations in the manner in which we charge our business licenses, but we're not up to par with everyone else in the county, it's because they don't belong to those associations and aren't receiving that same kind of information. So yes, we are different, but we don't need to make knee-jerk decisions anymore. And I do recommend, and I think that's what we're doing, aren't we? In order to be able to look at that, you're doing a rate study right now on business licenses? Okay, alrighty. So I really appreciate that there be more of a overall analysis and strategy to first analyze things from here on and just do it a lot smarter. So appreciate that. Besides that, I believe that, you want to say something?
You're done?
Yeah.
Two quick comments.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's right, you were in here in the beginning.
First of all, I saw him in the audience. He had probably left. It's been a long meeting. Congratulate our new athletic director for Calexico High School, Mr. Alvarado.
Oh, yeah.
I saw his wife here, so I want to congratulate him. He's a lifelong Calexico High School teacher, previous AD. I think he's been football coach. So anyway, I know him personally for the past 30 years, and I want to congratulate him on his new position, which he's had before. And on a serious note, not a criticism. When you came in, you revitalized the Public Works Department. And I think we need to revitalize the financial accounting department. It's a backbone of our city. We can all argue that public works, public safety, finance, but I'm not sure if the public's aware we're down a finance director, we're down a finance manager, and we're down 2 accountants. It's not my opinion, it's the opinion of our financial advisor. And it's been the case for the past 3+ years. And in order for us to succeed in the long term, we need that backbone established and ready to rock and roll for our city. Starts with a finance director, we need a finance manager, we need 2 accountants. That's plain and simple the facts of what we need from a finance standpoint. And if we are wanting to get over this hump financially, how can we do that without the necessary financial structure? I know you're working on it, I know this for a fact, but it needs to be a priority. It needs to be a priority. And I know it is, I just want to reemphasize my 2 cents and how important this is to me personally, that we need to restructure that department as soon as possible. It's been a long night, so I'll keep it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Escobar. City Manager, do you have any energy left for any of your comments?
No report at this time.
Oh, the fleet,
done?
David.
You okay?
Mr. Dale,
Yes,
any vehicles come in?
we had 6 vehicles come today.
6
Mm-hmm.
for water?
No, I didn't. I haven't seen them yet.
All right, 6 vehicles.
6, and I think we have 9 more coming.
Hey, looks good.
Mr. Dale,
Yeah, no report.
Let's do this, baby.
do I have a motion for the approval of the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
Anybody want to remove any items?
I'll second the motion.
Okay,
I'll
first by
remove-
Mr. Hodge, second, oh, did you want to?
I want to remove item 4.
Item number 4. Do I have an approval then, I'm sorry, motion for 5 to 9?
I'll make
Mr.
that motion again for 5 to 9.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hodge, second by Mr. Escobar. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You want to discuss Mr. number 4?
No,
wait,
just
did
want
you
to
say number
vote on it separate. I make a motion not to approve item 4.
Any specific item?
No, just the whole item.
The report itself?
Just I
Legal,
guess
is
because
it
of,
even necessary to do that kind of a motion? Does it make sense?
yeah, you guys just have to
if
vote
it-
no if you want to vote yes.
Well, if there's no second, it dies.
I'm sorry?
If there's not a
it
second
dies.
to the motion
dies.
automatically dies.
Correct. I just want to make that motion.
He wants to be put on record.
Who wants to go ahead and approve the item number 4? I need a motion.
Item
You-
4, my motion dies, so somebody needs to make a motion.
Oh, okay. I'll approve item number 4,
Second.
Madam Mayor.
Okay, first by Mr. Hodge, second by Mr. Escobar. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
No.
I
Aye.
did want to make a comment, Mr. Dale, about your consent agenda, and I wanted to make sure that the public knows that the items that are on consent agenda is a lot of work. It represents a lot of work that you are doing in the Public Works Department, and I wanted to commend you on that.
Thank you.
Because if we go through this list here, you have approvals for the Westland Port of Entry, I mean, we got a lot going on, hazard constructions, doing all kinds of street improvements. There's a lot going on in Public Works. And honestly, you do
Let's
a great
move
job,
on.
because it's
Thank
pretty
you.
hefty. So thank you. Really much appreciate that. Discussion and potential action items number 10. Authorize interim city manager to sign agreement with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection for the installation of a temporary landing mat barrier on city property.
Motion to approve item 10.
Second.
Real quick,
Fine.
because
Finished.
I do have to formally do this. APN 058-400-06-000. Do I have
Forgot the period. Motion to approve.
Second.
motion by Mr. Hodge? I'm sorry. Motion by Mr. Real, second by Mr. Hodge. All in
You
favor?
didn't cover anything, Mr. Dale, on that?
It's unnecessary unless you need a comment. Okay.
Okay.
Aye.
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 Ready. Do I have anybody that wants to speak on item number 11? I know I have a couple of visitors. Item number 11, consideration of request by Mega Park to extend the expiration of tentative map for 2 years pursuant to Government Code Section 664526, parentheses, small e.
A motion to
Motion.
approve 11.
Second.
Okay, first by Mr. Escobar, second by Mr. Real. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next item, appointment by Council Member Escobar to the Planning Commission.
I'd like to appoint Mr. Ricardo Uribe.
Okay, thank you.
Uribe, U-R-I-B-E.
Congratulations to Mr. Uribe.
Motion to adjourn. Oh, we got
No,
5.
future agenda items.
Okay, does anybody want to do any future agenda items?
Easy, boy, easy.
Future agenda items? Okay,
There's a gentleman
meeting is
raising.
adjourned. Thank you very much. We are returning then. It is a 9:37 PM. Sorry for the wait. We just had a second part of closed session. City Attorney, do we have any reporting?
You know, we do have a report on item number 3, public employee appointment, title city manager. The city council, by a vote of 5-0 unanimous, voted to appoint Mr. David Dale as the city manager for the city of Calexico, subject to the negotiation and approval of the contract for city manager. That will be agendized at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. City Manager, it is my pleasure to welcome you on board permanently.
Thank you.
Or as our city manager, and we thank you for the jobs that you've done so far, so looking forward to hard work.
I hope to make the city proud. I hope to make you all proud and work for the residents.
There you go. That's what we're here for. Thank you so much, everybody.
Motion
Good night.
to adjourn.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.